Namaste, namaskaram. My name is Jim Verghese. I'm the National Chair of the Australia-India Business Council. And I'd like to say good afternoon for all of our participants in India and good evening to all our participants here in Australia. It's a really great day today that we are in this very important strategic area of partnering for stronger defense and security, and formally launching the AIBC Defence and Security Chapter. Before I do a welcome to country, I would like to acknowledge the Honourable Peter Dutton, the Minister for Defence, the Honourable Manpreet Vohra, the High Commissioner of India here in Australia, and also Ambassador Honourable, who has played a very important role in the response to the Australia-India economic strategy and the India response to it. So let me now commence with welcome to country. And in the spirit of reconciliation, the Australia-India Business Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So welcome to the AIBC. We are the peak body which facilitates bilateral business and trade across Australia and India. India, of course, is Australia's 8th largest trading partner and 5th largest export market. Established in 1986, the AIBC's vision is to be an active voice involved in policy and advocacy roles to promote and enhance the bilateral Australia-India business and trade relationship, as well as provide education and information about Australia-India trade-related matters. We maintain a close working relationship with our stakeholders, including the Government of India, the Government of Australia, and industry. We have AIBC chapters in every state and, of course, here in the Australian Capital Territory, which is headed by active and highly motivated presidents and chapter members. Every president is also a director of the board of AIBC Limited, which is headed up by the national chair and national vice chair, who are elected by all AIBC members. The board also appoints a national treasurer as an additional director of the board and is supported by a legally qualified company secretary and non-voting director from AIBC India. Over 3 years ago, AIBC established national industry chapters to assist in addressing specific bilateral industry issues. AIBC members are now engaged in bilateral trade initiatives and actively contributing to AIBC's vision of strengthening the Australia-India bilateral relationship. We have now established as a unique business council with a great profile in both India and Australia. We're guided by successful national and strategic pragmatic plans. These plans have real-world key performance indicators and provide a sharper focus to all our activities. Our policy framework remains broadly on the India Economic Strategy 2035, navigating from potential delivery, and His Excellency Anil Wadhwa's equivalent response from the Government of India. The AIBC acknowledges the difficult time faced by business and indeed all of us due to COVID-19 pandemic restrictions and the economic fallout. Going forward, we will continue to work towards building stronger platforms in facilitating and nurturing growth opportunities for business and investment between Australia and India. We continue to collaborate with our partners to sponsor high-level webinars with record attendances and presented in a highly focused business profile. In fact, we've conducted over 60 webinars. We've strengthened our relationship with the Confederation of Indian Industry, with FICCI, the Federation of Indian Committees of Chambers of Industry, the Australia-India Business Chamber, and Invest India. In Australia, we've opened new partnering opportunities with the Business Council of Australia and the Export Council of Australia. We're also continuing to strengthen our relationship with federal, state, and local government agencies in both Australia and India. I am very encouraged with the high quality of our national chapter chairs in key areas of trade and investment. And we will incorporate any strategic responses from the Government of India as we engage that way. We have a national chair's email hotline that is set up for constructive feedback and business-forward suggestions. All our industry chairs have been established across all states and territories. They're in agribusiness, corporate and investment, education and skills development, agribusiness, education and skills development, financial services, healthcare, information and communication, and digital, make in India, renewable energy, resources, infrastructure, small and medium-sized businesses, startup and innovation, women in business, young business leaders, sports, and of course, member benefits chapter, and very importantly here today, defense and security chapter. We also have national advisors for export and investment, ICT and partnerships. We look forward to delivering our program of events using digital platforms and social media. These events will be delivered by our industry chapters. We are re-energizing AIBC Digital Learning Exchange Forum and aligning it to maximize our facilitation of the comprehensive strategic partnership between India and Australia, signed off on the 4th of January last year at the virtual summit between the Prime Minister of India and Australia. At the end of the day, we have a very simple key performance indicator. What have we done to increase the trade and investment between Australia and India? We have just launched AIBC Business Enterprises to provide an effective platform to deliver business-to-business outcomes. AIBC welcomes more involvement from Australians of non-Indian diaspora origin as we consolidate our identity as the preeminent Australia-India Business Council. We look forward to working collaboratively with any person's organisation that supports our business objectives and outcomes, especially through our industry chapters and our state presidents. I look forward to working with all of you here today as you engage with us to increase and enhance the business-to-business relationship between states and territories of Australia and the states of India. Our networks of state and territory chapters and national institute chairs will be energized and empowered to embrace our ambitious business agenda. So without further ado, let me now hand over to our ACT, our president of the ACT chapter, Radhika Reddy. And Radhika has done a great job in consolidating the AIBC in the Australian Capital Territory. And you can see from her profile there, she's got a very impressive background, and she's really a very, what I would call a quiet and determined achiever. So I hand over to you, Radhika, to do the welcome. Over to you.
Thank you, Jim, for your very informative and incisive opening remarks. Good evening, everyone. I'm Radhika Reddy, as you know, President of AIBC ACT Chapter, and it's my pleasure to welcome you for the launch of the AIBC National Defence and Security Chapter. On behalf of the AIBC ACT Chapter, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the Honourable Peter Dutton, Federal Minister for Defence, who will shortly be giving the keynote address on partnering for stronger defence and security from the Australian perspective. Thank you, Minister, for joining us. I'd also like to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Manpreet Vohra, High Commissioner of India to Australia, who will speak on partnering stronger defence and security, however, from the Indian government's perspective. Thank you for joining us, Your Excellency. I also have privilege to welcome Ambassador Anil Vadava and also Chairman of Australian Industry Defence Network, Mr. Graham Presnell, President of the Society of Indian Defence Manufacturer, Mr. Jay Patel, Mr. Vish Vishwanath, Chair of AIBC Make in India Chapter, Mr. Joe Williams, Chair of AIBC Defence and Industry Chapter, esteemed guests from Australian DFED, my fellow colleagues from AIBC ACT Chapter, and a very warm welcome to all distinguished guests who are participating virtually today. The ACT Chapter is very proud to launch the prestigious National Defence and Security Body, where here in the nation's capital, where all the heart and strategic direction of Australia's defence is driven and finalised. The decision to launch the Defence and Security Industry Chapter was influenced by the current strength of the relationship between Australia and India. There is no secret when one says that India has been and continues to be a very strong friend and partner of Australia in the defense and security sphere, and also as a member of the Quad, along with United States of America and Japan. With the recent more major changes to the Indian defense procurement process, we see tremendous opportunity for the Australian companies to take advantage of the strong relationship between the two countries. Further, we were also influenced by the fact that India today is more than a $1 trillion economy. So Prime Minister Modi's current government goal of a $5 trillion economy is very much achievable by 2024, 2025. The question is, are Australian businesses going to be part of the growth story, or will we miss out? This is where the AIBC is playing a key role in increasing awareness of the possibilities that a $5 trillion economy presents for Australia. The AIBC is constantly in discussions with many industry and government leaders in Australia and in India, and has recognized the importance of the establishment of the Defence and Security Industry Chapter, which will focus on supporting Australian companies in taking advantage of the Indian defence market. In September this year, our Defence Minister, Peter Dutton, and Foreign Minister, Marise Payne, met with their Indian counterparts, wherein Indian Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, appraised Minister Dutton about steps being taken by India to achieve self-reliance in the defence sector. Having been assured on the strength and the commitments of the two partnering countries, we as members of the AIBC ACT were invigorated to pledge to support into this newly formed Defence and Security Chapter. And on to our colleague, Mr. Joe Williams, who will also chair the Defence and Security Chapter. We wish him great success in his role. And so without further ado, I look forward to hearing from the keynote speakers, sharing their thoughts on partnering for strong defence and security. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Radhika, for that very comprehensive welcome and outline of what this program is today, and in this very historic event of actually launching the inaugural Defence and Security Chapter, which is very historic. It's now my great pleasure to introduce the Honourable Peter Dutton. Can I just, as we make this introduction, point out that the Federal Parliament is sitting at the moment, and during this time, as most would be aware, there are divisions that take place. It's challenging for a Member of Parliament and a Minister to click into this webinar as we have today. So I thank Peter Dutton for being so committed to the session today that he has actually just done this recording for us to give his message so that it doesn't disrupt our webinar today and flows very smoothly through. So I'll ask our people now to play the video, and we'll take it from there. So over to you, Michelle.
Well, good evening, friends, esteemed guests.
Jim, we might be having some issues playing back the video. If we can continue on the video in a short while.
All right. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties. These things happen from time to time. So I might ask His Excellency, Mr. Manpreet Vohra, High Commissioner of India, to speak as we try and resolve that technical difficulty. So if you'd like to put the profile of His Excellency on the screen. And as you can see, His Excellency has made a big impact since coming here in 25th of April. And as someone who lives in Brisbane, we were fortunate to have him here first, one of his first visits. And the AIBC has been very fortunate to be able to connect with him right across Australia. And he is making a very impressive impact and a great job in fostering the bilateral trade and industry relationship. So over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much for that introduction. And I wish we could have had the benefit of listening to Minister Dutton before I bore you all with my talk. but I'm sure we will be watching his video very shortly. My greetings to, of course, the minister, and I hope someone from his team can pass them on to him. To you, Jim, Mr. Presnell, Mr. Jayant Patil, office bearers of the AIBC, all my colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste and good day. At the outset, let me express my congratulations to the Australia-India Business Council on the occasion of the launch of their Defence and Security chapter today. As Jim has just described in detail, the AIBC has fostered bilateral trade and economic relations between our two countries over the past 35 years through nurturing and maintaining close relationships in both Australia and India. It has done commendable work. Active chapters of AIBC in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and Canberra have maintained close relationships with federal and state government agencies, the diplomatic corps, and industry bodies, and have been instrumental in opening doors and facilitating the Australian and Indian business communities. But our economic relations do need further broadening and diversification, since the trade basket remains limited to this date, and two-way investments are also still quite modest. In my view, defense products, equipment, and technologies are at least one more area that hold considerable promise. It is therefore appropriate that the AIBC has stepped up and launched its Defense and Security chapter. My best wishes to Joe Williams, who will be leading the chapter from its inception today. And since Joe is based in Canberra, I guess I would have the good fortune of being able to meet him face to face more often than I can manage to meet Mr. Jim Varghese. India and Australia have common strategic and economic interests, and we are both committed to a free, open, peaceful, and prosperous Indo-Pacific, our shared region. As comprehensive strategic partners, we have also stepped up our defense and maritime cooperation. Our mutual logistics support arrangement and the Defense Science and Technology arrangement with India's Defense Research and Development Organization, or the DRDO, and Australia's Defense Science and Technology Group, or the DSTG, working closely in defense research, are particularly noteworthy. Greater military interoperability, enabling increasingly complex military engagement, and greater combined responsiveness to regional humanitarian disasters are other key aspects of our cooperation. Exercises like Malabar, AUSINDEX, Austra-Hind, and others have evolved into stronger and more complex activities over the years. All this has enhanced our natural understanding and comfort level. As I said, a new and potentially very exciting area is for Indian and Australian defense manufacturers to come together for mutually beneficial collaborations. The Indian government has opened up the defense industry for private sector participation to provide impetus to this sector. 100% foreign direct investment is also now permitted. In a short span of time, a good ecosystem is already visible in India. Practically every large Indian business conglomerate today has a defense wing. A large number of new players, particularly SMEs or small and medium enterprises, have also come up. This paves the way for Australian defense manufacturers to enter into strategic partnerships with Indian companies in niche areas. They can invest in India on their own or establish joint ventures with Indian companies. They can not only meet India's defense requirements, but also some of Australia's requirements, since it may make good business sense for some of the production to be carried out in India. They can also use India as a hub for exports to third countries. India has good inherent strengths for heavy industry, automobiles, etc. There is abundant skilled manpower. We are the second largest producer of steel in the world. Most other raw materials are also abundantly available. As the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, has repeatedly urged, make in India and make for the world. India has created 2 defense corridors in the states of Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. The 2 state governments are actively promoting these corridors as investment destinations for defense manufacturing by providing several incentives. The Defense Investor Cell under the Department of Defense Production of our Ministry of Defense, they are ready to provide necessary information, including investment opportunities, procedures, and regulatory requirements for investing in the Indian defense sector, and also assist foreign companies keen on investing in India. The recent Memorandum of Understanding between the Australian Industry Defence Network and the Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers, and their leaders are both present with us today. This is another good development that should promote industry-level endeavors between both the countries. I urge the associations, both of them, to move quickly towards organizing actual B2B events where companies can get together and explore potential matchmaking opportunities. India's flagship defense exhibition, Def Expo 2022, is scheduled from the 10th to 13th of March next year in Gandhinagar in the state of Gujarat. I'm told that besides attendance by a high-level Australian delegation, and I hope very much that Minister Dutton can lead it, an Australian pavilion is being considered for the event. That would be a wise and welcome next step, and I'm confident that the Defense and Security Chapter of the AIBC would be happy to work closely with the AIDM and the SIDM to enhance the overall worth of Australia's participation at the Def Expo. My High Commission is, of course, happy to facilitate all of you in every possible way. I once again wish the Defense and Security Chapter of the AIBC all the very best in their endeavors. May I also take this opportunity to wish all of you a very happy festive season and a rewarding new year. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that very, very inspiring address and also that very key message of business to business and matchmaking. I think that's a very important message to get down into there and actually make things happen between. And I think that's a message we'll all take on board, and one that it's very good that you put it in a very inspiring and constructive way. So with that in mind, what a better way to introduce our next speaker, who is Mr. Joe Williams, and he's our inaugural AIBC Defence and Security Chapter Chair. Now, Joe is a very inspiring entrepreneur, and you can there see from his profile, he has extensive experience in this area, and he has wasted no time in getting it up and running and working with the ACT president and all our presidents and chapter chairs across the country. So it's really very, very encouraging for the Australia-India trade in defence, particularly, and security, that we have Joe driving this and taking on board His Excellency's challenge to us to get business to business moving and matchmaking to become real. So with that introduction, over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Jim, for that. The establishment of the defense industry chapter was organic, with many in the industry from both Australia and India seeking the need for one. Under the leadership of Jim Verghese, AIBC National Chair and the AIBC Board, it was officially formed to support the defense industry. AIBC has been in business for 35 years and has high credibility in working with both sides of the government, and has been recognized for supporting Australia and Indian businesses. And it gives me a great pleasure to chair the special industry chapter at AIBC. I would also like to thank the defense industry leaders, Mr. Jayant Patel from President SIDM, Society of Indian Defense Manufacturer, and Chairman of the Board, Graham Presnell at AIDN, Australian Industry Defense Network, for their support. With $72 billion defense spend, India is the third largest defense spender in the world. Over the next 20 years, growing India will need many of Australia's goods and services, ranging from education, agriculture, energy, science, and defense technologies. India, with its proactive approach towards foreign mutual trade and raising joint agreements with foreign countries, is strengthening its defense ties, offering huge growth potential for the defense industries. Likewise, Australia, with its $45 billion defense budget, is also focusing on building sovereign industrial capabilities. The Sovereign Industrial Capabilities Priority Program supports opportunities to drive Australia innovation, making small businesses more competitive and secure its supply chain, and making them attractive to business and export innovative technology in this industry. Australia and India continue to build robust people-to-people links between their defense forces through regular personnel and training exchanges. AIBC Defense Chapter will take a step further in developing and building stronger relationship between defense industries across the countries. This chapter will focus on providing a platform to foster bilateral trade, focusing in the defense and security sector. The chapter primary focus will be to provide policy advocacy, export promotion, and business-to-business support, providing special support to SME and startup industries to explore opportunities and grow across the region. The next big technology revolution will be in defense and aerospace industry. Small and medium industries, especially tech startups, will play a key role in disrupting the defense industry by failing fast to learn quickly, and will reduce time to market and cost. We have seen several small companies that have proven their capabilities, and government policies are moving towards supporting them. I, with the guidance of the leaders in the defense industries and government agencies, look forward to supporting businesses take advantage of the strong relationships fostered by both the governments to build a strong defense trading partnership in the region, and by doing so, to become a world leader in defense technologies. Thank you, and I look forward to supporting the defense and security industries and through a number of engagement opportunities in the coming months. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Joe. That's a great start to your inaugural launch of this important chapter. Before I introduce our other speakers, I'd like now to go back to our Minister for Defence, the Honourable Peter Dutton. We have resolved the technical difficulties, and I'd also like to thank the Minister for taking the time in the midst of the parliamentary business, which is always very challenging to speak, to take the time to do this video. So I'll hand over to my colleague Vishal to show us the video. So over to you.
Well, good evening, friends, esteemed guests. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but Parliament's sitting at the moment and we're expecting divisions. And I thought it would be better to do this virtually to wish you well in your deliberations. And obviously it follows on from our discussion, which was a virtual discussion again in April of this year, but it's very important work that you're doing. I want to acknowledge Jim Varghese. Jim, thank you very much for your outstanding leadership of the AIBC. Your professionalism is matched only by your passion. And I want to acknowledge Radhika Reddy, the President of the ACT chapter of the AIBC, and of course the Council's board members and staff. Today, as the AIBC launches its National Defence and Security Industry chapter, I'd like to congratulate its chair, Joe Williams, and I commend the entire Council on this initiative. I understand that the primary objective of the Council's National Defence and Security Industry chapter is partnering for stronger defence and security. Now this, as we know, is a vital objective. The Australia-India defence relationship dates back over 100 years to Gallipoli in 1915, where Australian and Indian soldiers fought alongside each other. Today, in so many ways, and so many years later, our two nations are indeed partnering for stronger defence and security. We're doing this because Australia and India recognise that our region has become more contested. We're seeing challenges to national sovereignty and risks to regional stability. Like other nations in the region, we want an Indo-Pacific which is open, inclusive, peaceful and prosperous. But we can't purely wish for these conditions or sit back passively when they are threatened. We need to work together to preserve and to promote them. And that's why Australia and India are deepening their defence partnership. In September, I was honoured to meet Indian Defence Minister Singh as part of our country's Foreign and Defence 2+2 ministerial dialogue. I said then, and it remains the case now, that our defence relationship is at a historic high. That comes off the back of the elevation of our bilateral relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership in June 2020 by Prime Ministers Morrison and Modi. At my meeting with Minister Singh, I agreed to augment Australia's defence diplomatic representation in New Delhi. It's an arrangement which will, among other things, nurture greater information sharing and coordination on maritime security. As we continue to lift our defence and security cooperation, the bedrock of our comprehensive strategic partnership, exploring longer-term reciprocal access arrangements will be essential. One of the most practical examples of our two nations partnering for stronger defence and security can be seen in the close engagement between our military forces. This year, Australia again joined India, Japan and the United States for Exercise Malabar. Phase 1 was held in August in the Philippine Sea and Phase 2 in October in the Bay of Bengal. Australia rejoined Exercise Malabar in November 2020 after a 13-year absence. Malabar has become an exemplar of defence cooperation between four democratic nations. In September, the Australian and Indian navies also exercised off the coast of the Northern Territory as part of AUSINDEX. And in July this year, India's military officers observed Exercise Talisman Sabre, which Australia hosted. When I met with Minister Singh and with Prime Minister Modi, I extended an invitation to India to join future Talisman Sabre exercises as a fully fledged participant. Importantly, each of these training exercises is doing two things. First, they help the components of an individual military force, a Navy, Army and Air Force, to operate more effectively as a joint force. That's one level. Secondly, and on another level, it helps each of our joint forces, the Australian Defence Force, the Indian Armed Forces and those of our partners, to cooperate more effectively as a combined force. And these two levels of interoperability within a single military force and between multiple military forces are crucial for enhancing preparedness, supporting cooperation and building trust. Because in the horrific event that conflict came to the Indo-Pacific, a situation all nations must work tirelessly to avoid, conflict would not be confined to a single domain. Conflict would likely occur across the land, sea, air, cyber and space domains. So we exercise together to improve our ability to operate across all these domains. And so we are ready to respond to the worst contingencies, hoping of course that they will never eventuate. When India and Australia's military forces exercise together, it sends a strong message that we're committed to supporting a region anchored in international law where the rights of all states are respected. and where disputes are managed peacefully, legally and without coercion. In order for our military forces to train, exercise and operate well, they need to be equipped with cutting-edge capabilities. We can only provide our men and women in uniform with the best kit if the engines of defence industry are running effectively. Behind modern military machines is a vast defence industry ecosystem of major international companies, of domestically based small businesses, of engineers and technicians, of scientists and innovators. It's a complex system which is crucial to producing the complex and sophisticated equipment used by our military forces. As we contend with a more precarious and tougher strategic environment than we've known in decades, the defence industrial bases of like-minded countries need to work more effectively and tightly together. And we share similar goals, being more responsive to the strategic circumstances, accelerating capability delivery, growing sovereign industrial capabilities to enhance our self-reliance, and fostering greater integration into supply chains and reducing barriers towards collaboration. That's why I'm pleased the AIBC has launched a National Defence and Security Industry Chapter. The Council's initiative will create a pipeline of business connections between Australia and India's defence marketplaces, a pipeline that will contribute to both security and economic objectives, and a pipeline that becomes a conduit for skills enhancement, intellectual property sharing, technology collaboration and advanced manufacturing. Importantly, industrial-based collaboration will hasten rather than hinder mutual defence capability objectives. This is about pragmatism, not protectionism, about cooperation, not competition. In 2020, the Australian Defence Export Office's Team Defence Australia sent a delegation of 10 companies to Def Expo, India's flagship defence exhibition. I understand companies from Australia's defence industry will attend the next Def Expo in March of next year. And I'd welcome AIBC's efforts to help facilitate on-the-ground connections to bolster our defence industry collaboration. We need to leverage our collective technological expertise to ensure our military capabilities maintain a leading edge, a technological edge to deter coercion, and a technological edge should we need to respond to hostility. That's why we're collaborating on many critical and emerging technologies, like artificial intelligence, horizon scanning and mapping, biotechnologies, supply chain security for semiconductors, quantum computing, cyber and space capabilities. We've laid the foundations for that cooperation. For example, under the Defence Science and Technology Arrangement, as part of our comprehensive strategic partnership, a very important commitment, and agreements during the first in-person Quad Leaders meeting in September. Now we must continue to make inroads, giving even greater practical effect to our collaborative intentions and goodwill. As Prime Minister Modi has said, we are at a historic moment of choice, whether all the wonderful powers of technology of our age will be instruments of cooperation or conflict, coercion or choice, domination or development, oppression or opportunity. It's a salient message. As Australia and India continue to deepen our cooperation, partnering for stronger defence and security, as our military forces engage in new training exercises and initiatives, and as we nurture greater industrial-based collaboration to develop capabilities, we must be driven by a difficult truth. If we fail to maintain a technological advantage, the tools which have the potential to maintain peace and to promote prosperity will undoubtedly be leveraged as weapons by others for increasingly coercive and zero-sum ends, undermining that very peace and prosperity that we all crave. Our collaboration is more than a choice. It's a responsibility for those who seek to defend freedom. So I might leave it there. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. The collaboration between our two countries is more importantly than ever. I'm sorry that the bells are annoying us in the background, but I'll have to head off to this division. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you very much, Minister Peter Dutton. We're extremely fortunate that we have a defence minister that's outstanding in outcome focus and in moving things along. And it's already very encouraging to see the relationship is established with Minister Singh. And of course, he's provided a very comprehensive policy framework for our defence and security chapter to work with, and indeed for the AIBC to look at in terms of the broader policy context of our relationship, bilateral relationship with India. And he's also provided some inspiration to AIBC business enterprises to work with our inaugural chair for defense and security as we move this agenda along. So I'd like to thank Peter Dutton. We're very fortunate to have him as the Minister for Defence, and we look forward to further engagement with him in the future as we strengthen this important relationship. And we'll also remember this as a Malabar moment as well. So on that note, it's appropriate now to call on Mr. Brent Clark, the CEO of the Australia-India Defence Network, to address us on the next steps here from the AIDN perspective. And it's great to have him here. And as you can look from his profile in there, AIDN is very active in Australia in every state and territory. And it's very good that there is an MOU now in place, which the AIBC can play a very active role in progressing. And Graham, thanks for taking the time to come and share this important webinar with us. So over to you, Graham.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to AIBC on this auspicious moment of the launch. Before I make my remarks, I'd just like to acknowledge some people on behalf of Aiden National. Unfortunately, Brent couldn't be here tonight, so you're stuck with the chairman instead of the CEO. I'm based in Adelaide, he's in Canberra, but I know Canberra very well, having only moved over a couple of years ago. Anyway, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, their elders, past, present and emerging, and all Aboriginal people. Also like to acknowledge all the veterans, the veteran community of Australia, of which obviously I'm one, if you had a chance to read my profile. I'd like to acknowledge Peter Dutton. It's very pleasing to hear his presentation, and I'll touch on that later. Sorry, the Honourable Peter Dutton, Minister for Defence. High Commissioner Vohra, it's a pleasure to see you. Obviously, Jim, great to hear from you and meet you, and congratulate Joe on his inaugural meeting. And Radhika, pleased to meet you. You never know, we may have met in Canberra, there's so many people there. Like my good friend Jorawa, who we used to do a fair bit of work in the Navy when I was over in Canberra. Anyway, it's great. What I'd like to say, and very importantly, and left to last, was my very good friend, Jayant Patel, the president of SIDN, who I've had the pleasure to meet only virtually, but this being the second time. As the High Commissioner mentioned, we signed our MOU not that long ago. And what we discussed when there was a very august meeting was, how do we take the MOU and deliver for both India and Australia, particularly, as the Minister had just said, in this very congested, contested region, which is only going to get more contested and congested. So I was very heartened to hear the High Commissioner talk about companies working together, what we called, I think, Jane, putting the meat on the bones. That may be an Australianism, but we have the NOU and we want to actually enact it to get some outcome. And we made a pledge back when we signed the MOU that in 12 months' time, it was a couple of months ago, we wanted to hold a meeting and look back and see what has actually come of the MOU. So again, I'm heartened that AIBC is going to facilitate some of this work, and I look forward to being in India in March as well. A little bit about Aiden. Aiden, like yourselves, has chapters throughout Australia. We've just done a transition from a federated model into a national organisation, but retaining chapters within states and territories, because that's very important. As you know, Australian defence industry is spread across Australia, but there's different pockets, such as maritime, where I am, and space, and land in Queensland and aerospace in Queensland and land in Victoria. So that's why we're maintaining that structure, but still being a national organisation. So we're about 1,000 members. And importantly, we are a small, medium enterprise organisation. What does that mean? Well, that means that we probably capture a very large percentage of the innovation that goes on in the defence industry. The company I work for is an innovator in electronic warfare, and using that technology such as AI that was referred to earlier. So we have a number of companies, a large number of companies like that. And I'm sure in India, there are a larger number of companies there that have similar capabilities. So what are we going to do to fulfill the minister's vision of being in an area where we prepare to fight, but having such a strong capability that we don't have to? And that's what I think defence industry, that's their role, to equip our defence forces with the best equipment so that they have superiority in any future battle. So I suppose the message I want to give to this forum is, yeah, we're here to work with you. We have a large number of small, medium enterprises across Australia, and we look forward to working with our good friends, particularly SIDM and also AIBC. And I'll finish there.
Thanks very much for that, Graham. And it was good for me to introduce also your colleague earlier. So both of you win, and can I also appreciate the work of AIDN in my other hat as an executive director of Springfield City Group. We are a member of AIDN, and we appreciate your work in facilitating defence cooperation, and because of course Springfield City is only 21 minutes from Embley Air Force Base. So thank you for that. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Jayant Patel, who is the president of the Society of Defence Indian Manufacturers. And you can see there from the profile on your screen, a very impressive background, as well as being from chairman of board of directors to president to founder chairpersons. It's great to have a person of his caliber here speak to us. So over to you, Mr. Patel. I think we're just waiting for the India connection. You sometimes, there can be a little bit of a lag as we try and get him on board. Yep, over to you. You will need to unmute your button. We can't hear you. Unmute. I can ask my colleague Vishal to help him unmute. No, I can't hear you. Try again. Speak now. No, can't hear you still.
Jim, I'll try to work with Jayant offline if we can continue to the next speaker, and I'll be back.
All right. We'll just, as we're facing some technical difficulties, I'll ask Vishwanathan, our AIBC National Industry Chapter Chair for Make in India, to speak to us on the business-to-business partnership opportunities. As we're going to be running short of time, I'd ask Vish to make that short and sharp. So over to you, Vish.
Good evening, all, and Honourable Excellency Manpreet and Mr. Jayant Patel and Mr. Graham Plistel and my colleagues and Joe Williams, Radhika Reddy, and most importantly, our chair, Mr. Jim Varghese. How proud is this occasion to be in with the AIBC? Because the AIBC last 35 years has been driving with strategic vision. And here also this is done with a strategic vision as we sort of had the opportunity to work with my colleagues, Radhika Reddy, and also Amit Mehta, who is our National Treasurer, and also with our industry partners. We found there are opportunities to, where we can make challenges to opportunities. So both defense and security are both opportunities as well as challenges. So we thought we'll make this title as the defense and security. So that's the background of this. So I wanted to congratulate Joe. In coming specifically to the business-to-business opportunities, both the Minister Peter Dutton as well as His Excellency Manpreet has highlighted a number of opportunities, but I will just highlight purely from a business-to-business opportunities, and also from the Make in India point of view, which is also the vision of our Honourable Prime Minister India, Narendra Modi ji, with Atmanirbhar program, which is not only good for India, but also for the rest of the world. And that was also the key message which His Excellency was he was conveying in his speech. Now, if you see the real opportunities, it's mind-boggling. It's 200 billion Australian dollars will be spent by the Australian government in the next decade. And India will be spending nearly $250 billion in the next 15 years. Just immediately, they are going to spend about $14 billion in the modernization of Army, Navy, and Air Force. Recently, the strategic partnership model, which Government of India has brought out, has opened up the investment from overseas companies to participate in the Indian defense market by allowing 74% of the foreign direct investment in many nominated segments of products and services in the defense. In fact, some of them even 100% in some sectors. So with this, we have a number of opportunities in business to business, both in Australia and India. To give an example, even 11 projects which have been announced recently, which is just to give an example of these projects are infrared imaging search and tracking systems, oxygen generation, fighter system for the fighter aircrafts, wing drop tanks for aircraft, and inflatable decoy. And more importantly, we also have cyber security is the biggest opportunity which we are seeing. Within the cyber security, we have data analytics, cryptography, applications using artificial intelligence, advanced machine language, etc. And India is a huge market for cyber industry, which is $35 billion by 2025, which is not too far away. And if you look at the Australian side, we have enough capabilities, technologies. And if you even take South Australia as an example, we have companies who are offering Internet of Things, development of scalable in-space electrical propulsion systems. And there are opportunities to procure electronic components, design fabrication for space simulation chambers, aerial maritime surveillance systems, electronic warfare professional services, unmanned vehicles, and launch vehicle technologies. If you also look at the other big segments, it is space, satellites, drones, and of course, coming back to cybersecurity, we have a big market. So with all this, in fact, we can go on listing out a number of opportunities, and that's why we are going to have a focused session, which sometime in February, we'll have that session and having a business-to-business interaction, and we'll call all the businesses. But moving forward, we are continuously encouraged by the policy agreements between the two countries. We have an excellent climate now. now it is an opportunity for us. And we are also very fortunate to have the support from both SIDN under the leadership of Mr. Jayant Patel, as well as the Australian Industry Defence Network from Grant Preston. We look forward to closely associate with you. We are beginning our journey of that closer relationship starting from today. And once again, I want to thank you all for this opportunity and be part of this journey. And I'm so grateful to Mr. Jim Varghese for showing the leadership in ensuring that we are marching towards the future growth of economy, both in Australia as well as India, and participation through this partnership, which is the key message which is coming out of this. And I want to wish Joe Williams all the very best, and happy to support it.
Thanks very much for that, Vish. And Vish has done an outstanding job as chair of Make in India and promoting the bilateral trade and investment relationship. So without further ado, let's ask our colleague in India, Mr. Jayant Patel, to address us.
Thank you, Jim. And let me say it's a very special day today when AIBC launches a Defense and Security chapter. I'm reminded of times in India when we engaged with the Ministry of Defense about 2.5 decades back to open up the industry for private industry. We know right from independence days in India for last about 80 plus years, this industry otherwise was for the public sector, that's a government-owned sector. Of course, with that opening, must say exactly 2 decades now, and this sector is one of the most vibrant industrial sectors in India. We obviously as industry now having grown substantially, and just to give a dimension, the indigenous acquisition over last 1 year in terms of budgeting which has been provided has gone up by 40% just 1 year. And previous year it had gone up about 20%. So that's a time which actually is showing up in terms of how the Indian government is looking at the self-reliance agenda. Obviously, as a result, the industry calls itself the sixth arm. We heard the minister talking of the 3 armed forces, the space and the cyber, and we say industry is that sixth arm that makes everything feasible. And that's essentially where cooperation between great partners makes that the 7th arm in terms of going across the boundaries to be able to build up a relationship. For all of us, obviously AIDN and SIDM obviously signed on the principles which essentially mean that being Quad nations, and there's so much cooperation which is happening between the defense as well as strategic field within our 2 nations, there's much more that needs to be done across the industry. And that's essentially where that relationship we signed off. And today we're looking forward to actually having those, call it matchmaking. We heard that as a nice word today. But of course, over these 2 decades, must give you just a flavor of what India has done. We started building complete platforms. Just over last 2 decades, we always been building platforms based on somebody else's know-how and knowledge. Today, it starts happening right here indigenously with our own know-how and knowledge. Our space sector obviously has come of age. The space sector is just about getting opened. Defense was opened 2 decades back. Space sector is on the anvil to be opened. 11 new policies getting formulated. And of course, as industry, we have a serious dialogue today with the government in terms of finding opportunities right across some of these extremely important sectors for the nation. The reforms have been unprecedented. Someone who's been part of industry for 4.5 decades, I can say last 2 decades have seen completely different environment to do business in India. Last couple of years, it has dramatically changed. And the motto obviously has been self-reliance. Today, out of that about $65 billion of defense spend that happens in India, hard capital equipment purchase, which government of India does, is about $18 billion a year. So that's a big number and obviously huge opportunities. We know Australia is obviously trying to build good amount of defense industry. And this cooperation, I believe, would go both ways. obviously being the factory to, we obviously as India aspiring to be the factory to the world, besides the basic technologies, the kind of skill sets that are available, we produce 1.5 million engineers every year. And that's essentially the kind of size and scale in India in terms of what we do things. And with those, I believe there's time for some of our relationships to take the India-Australia relationship much, much forward. Indian industry, if I start talking of defense alone, there are 8,000 industries which today do something or the other in defense. Of them, roughly about 560 are very serious players and they are licensed for defense production. The rest obviously are the feeder industries in terms of tierized, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 industries. And these 560 are the ones who are today driving enormous amount of indigenization. Government has made a commitment that 80% of what they will acquire would start happening within the industry, Indian industry, and the balance 20 will remain imported. But what it means for this 80% which will be bought from Indian industry, there's a huge amount of relationships which can actually happen across nation, where there are niche technologies which obviously can be scaled up and made into larger and larger number. The opportunities to co-develop, opportunities to co-produce, opportunities to get into joint venture. You heard it very right. 100% FDI is not a no-no. 74% is on an automatic approval basis. And that's essentially where we see the ability which India brings into the table is to be able to do something very frugally and at extremely low cost point to be able to deliver a certain level of performance. Is that something that comes to India? And we believe that that's an ability which together between our industries can do amazing things going forward. I'm conscious of the time constraints, and as a result, we won't want to continue. Maybe much more we can speak about what exactly is happening in the sector and take our relationship forward. Glad to be present on this, as I said, a very special day of launch of a chapter. And of course, our AIDN relationship would be one of those key points of this bilateral relationship, which the government enjoys. The government to government dialogues keep happening, but we believe it's the industry to industry relationship which can make those exist in real form, and that's exactly where we need to be moving forward. Look forward to your delegations to Gandhinagar during the coming DefExpo in February. And of course, we'll take it forward as SIDM at that point in time to have some of those serious dialogues taking place either during or preceding or just after the DefExpo. Thank you so much for inviting me. I must stop by saying Jai Hind, and that our ambassador, His Excellency Manpreet Vohra is present. I just want to assure him that these are times which are obviously not going to be restricted to any one geography. And as members, we obviously look forward to all the 4 countries of Quad to be eventually getting into such relationships, industry to industry, and that's what we would want to look forward to. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much. And that was a very concise address that's allowed us to push forward with the business to business relationship, which we welcome. And we look forward to working with you on that. And look forward for that engagement to take place. And maybe you might even want to give a video message for our website as well. So we can continue that engagement. So as we come to wrap up today's session, I'll call upon Mr. Jowa Sandhu from the AIBC ACT chapter to deliver a word of thanks. And as you can see, Jowa is a very active member of the ACT chapter, and he has worked in the defense industry for over 25 years. So over to you, Jowa.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Jim. Now, one thing I realize is the time we are a bit over, so what I'll do is I'll improvise, but I'll still do my best to thank everyone who's actually really taken the time to attend the launch. Look, one of the things, just listening to our leaders and also industry leaders, look, it's one thing's been clear that the strategic alignment that we have now is probably at its best that we've ever had, although we've had the relationship quite long term. But I think with both sides in both countries, they're all valuing the contributions, and actually there's always room for improvement, but there's a lot more we can do to get there. Look, I would like to start with thanking the Honourable Minister for Defence, the Honourable Peter Dutton. Now, your thoughts were, thanks for sharing those views and being very explicit on some of the thoughts and the vision of how the relationships, I guess, are and how they're going to develop into the future. And they were both enriching and motivating. And as AIBC is a group of volunteers, I would say it's actually given us an energy boost listening to everyone to actually do more and build on what the organization's been doing for the last 35 years. So thank you for your time, and also look forward to having more engagement on the future key events. I would also like to thank His Excellency, Mr. Manpreet Vohra. Your Excellency, although you've been here since April, but I think you have gained the respect and also the value you've added in your guidance and support of the AIBC is instrumental. And we really thank for all your, I guess, views and the vision of where you would like AIBC to develop those relationships and facilitate with the other industry bodies that are present. And so really thank you for your views, and look forward to working with you here. Now, Graham Priestnall, Chair for the Australian Industry and Defence Network. Good to see you again, mate. It's been a while, but I'm glad you're well. And look, just knowing the experience you've had, and you're well known across defence and defence industry, and also bringing that viewpoint from being an ex-military, you know what the challenges are, and it'll just help everyone to actually facilitate that narrative and also those conversations to actually take that forward. And I think one of the things that's really appreciated is all the support we're getting from both the governments. That is quite unique at the moment. So thank you for your time, and really appreciate you coming online and providing your support. Now, Mr. Jayan Patel, look, thank you so much for your time. I did read into your profile, and it is amazing. And look, amount of the technical expertise and the experience all of you bring to this conversation would be instrumental to the success of the chapter. And I think we look forward to more conversations on how we can make this a success and learn from some of your experience jointly and individually to actually take this forward. Now, finally, and look, I think one of the comments really stuck home from you was industry being a critical aspect of delivery. I think I would go a step further and say the industry is actually a fundamental input to actually achieve capability outcomes and effects. And I think that's where the aspirational end goal should be. And I think that's where we are going to go eventually. Look, and finally, I would like to thank the National Chair, Jim Varghese, the President for the ACT Chapter, Radhika Reddy, Defence and Security Chapter, Joe, Make in India Chapter Chair, Ms. Vishwanathan, for their support and guidance. And it is that collective work ethic and the integrity in the efforts they put behind this organization that makes it happen. And I would also like to thank the support team, Wendy and Vishal, to make this a success. Look, I'm not an IT guru, but these guys are, and they make it run so smoothly that I would be freaking out on some of the things that they actually tackle. So thank you so much for your support. And I would also like to thank the members of AIBC who actually make the organization happen. And look, just I'll wrap up there, but I think we've got few future events that are coming. And just to go quickly through that, we've got the AIBC Victoria chapter with welcoming His Excellency to Australia and organising that event coming up on 8th of December. And next slide, please. And we have the AIBC Victoria Business Awards coming, closing on the 14th of February. So welcome all nominations. 4th of February, we have the AIBC Defence and Security Chapter Industry Briefing Session. And it is well worth, and Joe's already putting a lot of effort behind this event. So it'll be well worth the attendance. Next slide, Wendy. And of course, there's a 10th of February event, Emerging Opportunities and Challenges in the Biosecurity. And look, I would stop there and thank you again for all your valued comments and contributions. It's almost, if you've been involved in AIBC, I would say it almost gave me goosebumps listening to all of you, that how aligned we are getting there. And I think we should just maintain the momentum. Thank you all.
Thanks very much, Durava, for that. And what a great way to end this event today. And we can now declare that the AIBC Defence and Security chapter is now launched. And congratulations to all of us here. And on that note, I should like to now officially close this webinar and thank all our participants. And of course, the word of thanks has said it all for all our panelists and looking at the future. So it's namaste and namaskaram from me. And may you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.